And staying with the U.S., Donald Trump paid no income tax during his final full year of presidency, as he reported a loss from his sprawling business interests, and that's according to tax figures released by a congressional panel. The records were released by the Democratic-led U.S. House of Representatives Ways and Means Committee after a year-long fight. They show that Trump's income and his tax liability fluctuated dramatically during his 4 years in the White House. The records cut against the ex-president's long-cultivated image as a successful businessman as he mounts another bid for the White House. Trump and his wife Melania paid some form of tax during all 4 years, the documents showed, but were able to minimize their income taxes in several years as income from Trump's businesses was more than offset by deductions and losses.
And to look at these stories in more detail, we can speak with Arise U.S. correspondent Eric Ham, who joins us from Washington. Eric, good to see you. President Zelensky was given a rousing reception. Did his comment about Ukrainian aid being an investment in global security hit home?
Well, if you look at how he was received in the session that he spoke to, it appears so. There were rousing standing ovations for him, people shouting, long live Ukraine. And of course, we saw that exchange of flags between him and the outgoing Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. But also, too, I think we cannot underscore just how important the symbolism was in terms of what we saw just last night. Here you had the president of Ukraine fighting to try to stave off authoritarian fascism in his country, while at the same time we saw this week the January 6th committee conclude their work looking into how democracy was almost eroded in the United States. So clearly what we saw last night from the president of Ukraine certainly hit home. It also caps off a 20-year successful career for the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, who, of course, is stepping down at the end of this year. We do know that there has been a number of Republicans who right now are not as supportive of Ukraine as many would like. In fact, Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene actually put out a tweet yesterday saying that the American people were being raped by providing foreign aid to Ukraine. A very, very stark comment from a sitting member of Congress. But again, that spoke to just the level of obfuscation and obstruction that the president is up against, but also many of those who want to provide ongoing aid to Ukraine. Also, what we saw is, again, President Zelensky trying to push that $45 billion aid package over the finish line to ensure that Ukraine receives that money throughout all of next year. Because, again, this funding would be the funding that would fund the war in Ukraine for an entire year. So it looks as though he may be able to achieve what he wanted, even though there's still some skeptics.
Right, and I'm glad you highlighted some of those sentiments from Republicans towards Ukraine and towards this war. And we all know that the Republicans will be taking over Congress in less than a fortnight. How do you foresee this affecting the U.S. sentiment towards Ukraine?
Well, look, we know that yesterday during the Senate Republicans' weekly luncheon, the incoming House Speaker, or potential incoming House Speaker, I should say, Kevin McCarthy, he actually presented to the Senate Republicans. Look, there's been ongoing tension between House Republicans and Senate Republicans. In fact, just earlier in the week, House Republicans threatened Senate Republicans that if they actually move forward with passing this aid package, that none of their priorities would actually see the light of day in the incoming new Republican Congress. Now, many Republican senators waved off that threat. But what we saw yesterday during that luncheon was the Kevin McCarthy, the House Minority Leader, attempting to try to assuage some of those concerns that Senate Republicans have, that they just don't believe that House Republicans are up to the task of actually governing. And so what we're seeing here is not a fight between Republicans and Democrats, but very much an internal battle that is taking place and being waged. And again, one of the key components of that fight, of this tension, is House Republicans do not want to see more resources provided to Ukraine, which is very different than where Senate Republicans stand right now. And we're seeing that play out, particularly as part of the backdrop of this surprise visit by the president of Ukraine.
Well said, Eric. Now, so of course we know President Zelensky helped further strengthen the U.S.-Ukraine relationship. And since it's the Christmas season, what presents does he take back home with him to Kyiv?
Well, look, he takes home something that he has been clamoring for more than 6 months, and that is the Patriot missile defense system. This is a system that it will help Ukraine be able to stave off many of these missile-guided attacks that have been so devastating to Ukraine, particularly as Ukraine now enters into the winter season. In addition to that, the $1.8 billion that President Biden spoke of providing to Ukraine yesterday during their joint press conference. So he will be receiving enormous aid, but also, of course, this weapon system could be seen as integral to the ongoing war that has seen a number of casualties and massive destruction, particularly on the ground in Ukraine.
Now, Eric, you know, our conversations are never complete without keeping up with Donald Trump. We've got the update on his tax affairs. How's this news going down in the United States?
Well, look, much of the news, particularly the fact that Donald Trump paid zero taxes, that is something that is not a surprise to many. In fact, the New York Times had actually was able to ascertain Donald Trump's tax returns. And we were all aware that he paid very little to no income tax in certain years. In fact, one of the reasons that he was able to not pay any taxes is because of massive losses, at least that he claimed on his taxes, actually dating back years. And so what we are seeing here is Donald Trump is still continuing to draw down on not paying taxes because of massive losses, all going far back as 2014, where we know that the former president, based on his taxes, showed that he suffered at least $700 million in losses. And so what he's able to do is spread those losses out over the years to actually minimize his tax liability. In addition to that, however, we do know that the former president has paid estimated taxes, which means he will pay taxes on what his estimated income is. And then, of course, he will write down and also receive a refund as a result of that estimated payment that he would make.
Very well said. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsday. Arise US correspondent Eric Ham, we appreciate your time as always.